Hello, everyone. My name is Matteo Loglio. I'm an interaction designer. These days, I'm also head of design at a creative company called Oyo, which I co-founded back in 2020 with my friend Simone. Today, I'm going to talk about AI. So my personal journey with AI started back in 2016, so a long time ago. I was working at Google Creative Lab, and we did many experiments around this technology. They're still online. They're called Google AI experiments. And one of them was this, called NSYNC Super. This was my first public AI project, a project where I worked on. It was a musical instrument that is using AI to generate new sounds. So it's not like synthesizing them, but generating them using an AI algorithm. And we really released it as an open source project as well. So you can find it on GitHub, so people can build it. And recently, Grimes said in a podcast that she used it for her album Misanthropocene. So I guess the power of open source, so people can actually use it. And so, well, this was a long time ago. This was 2017. And since then, I've been working on hundreds of AI projects. And I still do it these days through Oyo. That's what we basically do there, among many other things, maybe too many things. But what we do is we're a creative company working on future products and tools for a less boring future. Right, cool. What does that mean? Well, we work with companies from big corporations all the way to small startups, cultural institutions, and everything in between to create products with emerging technologies. Future stuff. So meaning stuff that don't exist yet. Maybe it never will. I would say 90% of the work we do never sees the light of the real world, but that's exactly why we do it. And we work around concept, ideation, often on complex subjects, teaming up with scientists, engineers, developers, taking a bunch of tech specs, early experiments, and turning them into real enough products. And I think real enough here is the key. I guess in this room, all of you know what real enough means, like the MVP, the hero prototype, the Wizard of Oz, it's like getting to an early vision that you can communicate, you can iterate on, and you can communicate to someone and let them fill the gaps. It's like the trailer for a movie or the demo for a video game, so you don't have to build the whole thing. And so that's basically all we do. we don't go further than this. That's basically all we do. And we deal with this, what we call uncharted design land, because there are no tools to design here. So we have to make our own, and I'll show you some of these today. But we know that the tools will be there, maybe in 2 years, 3 years, maybe 10, who knows, but we design for that. So a big track of our work these days has to do with LLMs, which I guess you're all familiar with. Large language models like ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, all these AIs that you can talk to. You can chat, you can do a lot of things. We even have our own. It's called Robbie. It's our AI creative director. It's been our first hire in the company. It helps us with, in weird ways, but creating some creative work. I'm not even sure what it does, actually. As the name suggests, these large language models deal with language, right? So like ChatGPT, you can chat to it, you can talk to them, and language is kind of the funnel where you have to put everything through, you have to translate everything you want to do into language. But it's not true. These days, they can also do other stuff, like images, and they can see, they can talk, they can generate videos, generate complex stuff. And so this is something I want to show you is like how today AI can see, for example. And this is a video from 2 weeks ago from the launch of the Google Pixel 9 that is ships with a bunch of AI features already in the phone. So here you can see how by just pointing your phone at your fridge with 4 ingredients, you can generate this amazing lentil burger. And so the AI just looks at your fridge and generates the recipe for you. So AI can see. And this is recent. This is like 2 weeks ago. I was too far from the mic. And so the other thing is that it not only can see, but it can also generate content. So, we've all seen these AI videos. Our content platform are flooded with these AI videos, and they're getting so popular that in China, on Bilibili, there is this video trend of teenagers imitating the AI aesthetics, And so, cool. But this is not what I really want to talk about. I want to talk about more complex artifacts that AI is able to generate. So not just videos and images. This is another feature that I've seen in some presentation this morning. Someone was also talking about this. Claude 3 ships with this feature called artifacts that they just released to all their users last week. And so this means that the AI can now generate complex artifacts. And here they generate SVGs, like vectors, like that little octopus. And then they also put all these SVGs into a side-scrolling game that then it's all generated by the AI. And it all runs in the browser window of the AI. So you don't have to copy, paste, they do everything in the browser window. So, and this is where we are today. And this is where we're going. So the idea is that there are no pages anymore. So it's no screens, at least in the traditional sense. So all of this hard-coded UX, UI work that we all know, it might be very different soon. So we might have to unlearn a bunch of stuff. This is an experiment that my friend and colleague Bjorn did in 2023. So early 2023, so almost 2 years ago. So he was injecting CSS into web pages. He basically made a Chrome extension that you can prompt, and then the AI was generating the style and injecting it into the page. So you can ask, make Bing look like Google, and then Bing looks like Google. Or you can also make the search bar look like a sausage, hot dog. Right. And this was 2 years ago. And this was just an initial experiment, but this is something that we see happening more and more in many other design surfaces. And so the idea is that everything can become malleable. And so many of the things we do never see the light, but sometimes the cheese slices align. And so I can talk about some stuff. So you remember when I said that LLMs are mostly conversational interfaces, mostly text? Well, but what if they would be able to generate full-on web views instead? And so this is what we did. We helped the Gemini team at Google to design a system that would allow the LLM, so the AI Gemini, to generate UIs on the spot. So it would not just pick these UIs from a list. It would understand the context and then generate the user interface right in the window of the chat. So what you can see now is that this is from the YouTube video of the launch. They called it ad hoc UIs. And so you can see that the AI generates like a gallery with thumbnails and side-scrolling navigation bar. So all of this is generated by the AI. And other examples here, you can see when someone asks about who invented the radio, it not just provides information, but also ways to navigate the information. And this was not designed by a human. This was all generated by the algorithm. And on the other hand, you can also use images to communicate together with words. So you can do segmentation on images and then combine it with prompts. And then the AI would also generate UIs based on this. Cool. So you may think that our job is over. We can just prompt our way out of our job. Well, not really. Well, developers do that, but we can't do it yet because that would be too easy and boring, and probably the output wouldn't be as good as you may think. But what if we can take this idea a bit further? So what if instead of using external AIs to do our job, we can actually bake AIs into the products that we're designing? And so the idea is that what if every app, every website, everything we're building, we can just put an LLM into that. And each instance, so each user would have a different agent in their app. And what if we take it to the next level? What if instead of one, we can have multiple agents into each one of these apps? So we can have an agent for content, an agent for moderation, an agent for UX, UI, they can have different expertise. And this is what some people are doing. This is an experiment by OpenBMB. It's called ChatDev. So they created this virtual software agency. So all the characters you see here, each one of them is an AI, is an agent. And so they have the design team, the coding team, testing, documentation. And so you just prompt them with a task, which can be design a Pong game. And so then they have these conversations among themselves, feedback loops. And so the design team goes through testing, development, and then they make the Pong game. And so here, the designer, well, the effort of the creator of this is just to create this engine that is able then to generate software, basically, based on human prompts. And this was 6 months ago, and a few months ago, they also released this new one called Agentverse, where they're taking it a bit to the next level. So they even have recruiters who actually generate the expertise on demand for different iterations of the product. And they even created a simulation using a Pokemon game engine where they can actually observe basically how and I think this is how the simulation we live in started, as a Pokemon game. But okay, let's try to think about how this scenario would work for us. So if the user requests a page today, they just, website or a banking app, the server just gets the request and then returns a page. But what if instead we would have a UX agent that knows the user because it's the agent living in the device of the user. And so it generates an experience based on this very specific user, and then passes this information to the content agent, and the content, knows the tone of voice, the time of the day, potentially the mood, I don't know. But, also language is a big one. Today, instead of translating in 2,000 different languages, translation can be done on the spot by a content agent, for example. Then everything goes down to the UI agent, who generates the web page using the brand asset, the brand guidelines, and everything, and then serves it back to the user. New way of solving problems. This is cool. It all works fine in practice. But, it's easy to talk about concepts. But, it's when concepts become things that things get interesting. And so we have some people in our team called Oyo Products, and we've been working on something using this kind of pattern. And so the story starts a few months ago when I moved to Barcelona. I was walking my son to school. And I was talking to ChatGPT in my AirPods, talking about the neighborhood we live in and finding out stuff. And then 20 minutes later, I was talking about the dollar inflationary policy, And I was like, cool, but how did I end up there, And it's one of those moments where you realize, oh, this is interesting. This is a new way of consuming content, interacting with machines, and, and that's when we thought, okay, this is super interesting. Let's try to prototype something. So we started prototyping things until these prototypes turned into a product, which we haven't launched yet, but I can show you some stuff. It's an infinite podcast. It's called Walkcast. Based on where you are, it generates a story. Sometimes it's real, sometimes it's fictional. And based on where you go, it keeps changing. So the experience walks with you. We even have a video. It's 30 seconds.
You are listening to Walkcast, the podcast that is generated by your location and therefore different every time, everywhere. Most people think this spot is known for the museum, but it is also one of the most iconic skate spots in the world. Keith Haring arrived in Barcelona in 1989, a time when the world, and that's when a lost penguin found itself on this very beach. Thank you for listening to Walkcast. Generate your own episode from wherever you are on walkcast.fm.
So, Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I think almost finished. So, so the idea is that we went from linear audio, the classic audio file that we all know and love, to something that is spatially generated. So the audio is continuously generated, and we like to think the metaphor that you are the playhead, and by walking, you're playing the audio, And the more you walk, the more it generates. And so let's go back to the agents. So this is how we are imagining this thing, how does it work? So this is what we call the storytelling engine. And so the storytelling engine has these steps that then are repeated in a loop. Because you keep moving, it keeps repeating it. And so in a classic scenario, we would just do a bunch of API calls and hard-coded JavaScript, depending on what you do. But we said, okay, cool, but what if we can actually outsource this work to agents? And so we created 3 agents: the curator, the editor, and the host. And so the core of our design effort was now to craft this storytelling engine using these agents. And so the curator, for example, is a series of tasks. Like, it gets the location from the phone, and then gets this location, finds points of interest around you, and then it queries Wikipedia automatically, so you don't have to do it manually. The LLM does that for you, and then compiles all this information in a file that is sent to the editor. So the editor is the creative one. So the editor gets the location, and then gets deeper into these places, what's happening, finds tangent arguments, comes up with some random stuff that is not true, but we like also that. And then introduce random ideas, and then once the script is ready, it sends it to the host. And so the host reads the script in the right tone of voice, and then generates the audio that you listen in your headphones. So how does it work behind the curtain? Each one of these is an LLM, like the ones I've been showing you at the beginning. So each one of them has what is called a system prompt. So a long piece of text that defines how this agent should behave, the tasks, the guardrails, especially what they should not do, because they tend to do a lot of things that you don't want them to do. So you don't see it here, but then below it gets like, don't do that, like exclamation marks. But that's the only way. And so the storytelling engine enables an infinite experience that is always different. And so ideally, we designed the rules for this system, and we let the agents take over. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's just random and unexpected. But the experience is quite good. Right now, it's not online yet. It's going to be online in a few weeks, but you can sign up on walkcast.fm. When it's ready, we'll send you an email. This was a big learning for us. It was the first time we were actually creating this new way of developing and designing an experience. It's a bit mixed. You develop and design at the same time. And this leads me into the end of this presentation, where I can share a bit of my thinking about the AI state of affairs. So we all know this quote by Henry Ford, right? So the AI today is the faster horse. It's learning what we've been doing so far on the internet and just repeating it, accelerating it, augmenting it to the extreme. So we do 100 things instead of 10 because AI can do things much faster. It's fast, but it's not really changing what we do. We just do more of the same things we were doing before. And that's because we're in between worlds, Now is the time of monsters. And I don't mean monsters as in ugly, I mean metaphorical monsters, as in experimental beasts, orphan in time. There is born too soon or too late. So if you look at most of the AI applications today are just the technological dream of the last century, AI as the perfect butler, the glorified assistant, or even worse, the magic button that solves all your problems with one click. And this is my favorite, introduce yourself. But most importantly, AI is purple, you know? Who decided that? So but we're stuck here now, and you know, I think we've been here before. It's not the first time we're here. Before getting into the screens era, you know, you were doing a bunch of different things with a microphone, a compass, a bookshelf. Now you can do all of that with one tool in your pocket. You know, sounds familiar. That's where we are right now, because I think we're in full AI skeuomorphic phase. AI is just a faster horse. We just keep doing what we were doing before, much faster, and it's a necessary phase because, you know, it increases adoption, it helps people to understand what these things do. Now they have different aesthetics, but it still hasn't changed the meaning of what we do. And we designers are still looking for the metaphors, I think, to actually turn this into something meaningfully new. So I think a few ideas that I can drop. I think from this presentation, maybe one thing that I can say is to start designing for malleability. I'm not sure how, but if you're designing something and you see maybe patterns where you might say, oh, instead of maybe translating this into 1,000 languages, maybe we can just put an agent here that translates it, or content moderation, or there are a lot of many instances in our daily work where we can start seeing patterns that can be replaced with a Malleable solution, for example. I think, and also, there are really no tools for this, so the second thing I can say, and this is inevitable, I also saw this talk this morning by Gasso, who was saying, again, like, design your own tools, make your own tools, because I think it's really fundamental these days that people start making your own tools, especially in this transition phase. It's really not an option, because this is what I think, is we shape our tools and our tools shape us. And if you don't shape your tools, someone else will shape the tools for you. And so the last thing I want to say is everybody say AI is going to replace everybody. So before being replaced by AI, you can just replace yourself, you know. Start outsourcing a lot of the things that don't make sense to these agents, to these AIs, so we can keep focusing on what we do best. All right. Thank you.